Everyone, welcome. We are about to hit record, so if you don't want that, jump off. I'm going to say that again when we start recording, but
you're recording. Go for it.
All righty, welcome. It is 11:01 a.m. Central Time, and it is time to begin October 13th, Kansas City User Group, aka Admin Group, aka Community Group, whatever we're calling it these days. Thanks everybody for being here, taking time on your Tuesday to hang out with us. We've got a pretty great session for you today, so hopefully you will enjoy. I am Jeff Berger. I'm a Salesforce administrator at Academy Bank, and I co-host the user group with Mr. Dale Ziegler from Seven Summits. Dale's on the line for a little while here today, so I appreciate Dale being here when he can. And feel free to ping either of us at the Kansas City-US-user at trailblazercgl.com email address. That's the new email address that's new as of the change back to user group. We've changed our name so many times now. As I mentioned right before we started recording, we are recording this meeting. So before we go any further, if you are not comfortable or you don't want to be part of this recording, please drop now. We will post this later. So if you just don't want to be part of it live and you want to check it out in the future, feel free to drop. But give everybody like 5 seconds to drop. And otherwise, if you're going to hang out, please be sure to mute yourself. It's October of 2020, so I'm sure at this point we all know the proper Zoom etiquette. But if not, just friendly reminder, please mute. Keyboards are loud, kids are loud, dogs are loud. So mute yourself if you're not speaking. However, please feel free to jump in, right? This doesn't have to be a one-way presentation. So don't worry about unmuting yourself if you got something to say. This is a group, it is a collaboration, so please participate. Big thanks to our sponsor, Spekit. Melanie's here. She's going to talk to us all about Spekit. As somebody who was in a former role at a former stop, I was pushing for Spekit pretty hard. I'll have to circle up with you, Melanie, and see how that went after I left. Oh, good. So Spekit is awesome, and we're really excited to have them here. I think that really dovetails nicely with the conversation we had last time about process documentation. We actually, Melanie had one of our community group members present on process documentation. So she really teed you up for a cool conversation here with Spekit today. We have a Slack channel, so we keep trying to promote this. Every meeting, after the meeting, we get a couple of requests to be added, so hopefully that community continues to grow. If you want to be included, send us an email, or get a hold of us. You know how to get a hold of us, and we'll make that happen. I actually posted a question in the Slack channel earlier this week. KC Salesforce community. So most of you probably know this because you found us and you're here. But if not, you can go to bit.ly/KCTBC. That's KCTBC, all caps. Don't forget with bit.ly, those are case sensitive. And you can find all of the user groups there that are here in the region. And just like you did for the user group, you can sign up to get notified when new events get posted. We do have a developers group, women at tech group, a nonprofit group, and now I think to Dale's point last time, a combined marketers group. So check that out, bit.ly/KCTBC, if you haven't already signed up for all of those groups to get all of those awesome event notifications. Next up for those groups, we've got Thursday, November 19th. Daniel Malone is back to talk to us a little bit more about a cool topic. And then Eric Dreschfield will be here, the man, the myth, the bacon, Eric Dreschfield. So please be sure to join us for that. That's Thursday, November 19th. December still TBD. Friendly reminder about the speaker interest form. December TBD, could be you. Go check it out. And Dale, if you have that speaker interest form handy and want to pop that link in the chat while I'm talking about it, that'd be great. Go fill it out. Let us know what you want to talk about. We want to hear from more of you. And maybe now that we're in a virtual space, a little less intimidating. Now that we're all comfortable doing these types of things from home. So fill out the form and we'll be in touch.
And so along those lines, yep, I'm posting the interest form in the chat right now. I just published the registration site for November 19th this morning. We're already up to 20 RSVPs, which is super awesome.
Cool.
But that link is in there. When we share the deck out later, probably also got an email. It's going to be in the success group. It's going to be on LinkedIn. It's going to be on Twitter. It's going to be in all the places, but please join us. It is live.
Yes, thank you, Dale. Yeah, if you have signed up on bit.ly/KCTBC, you got that email this morning. I know because I did. If you haven't, now's a good time to go sign up at bit.ly/KCTBC, and you can get those emails in the future. Speaking of emails, emails from other groups, I don't see quite as often, but I know that there are other groups out there, and we're all doing our best to try to find time for this sort of stuff during quarantines. Any updates from developers, WIT, nonprofit marketing groups, any of the leaders out there that want to share, or anybody who's participating in those groups who wants to comment?
I know Brian Hadaway had teased something for the dev group in the last meeting. Haven't heard anything yet on it, but I know he's cooking something up.
Yep, absolutely. I think they're targeting beginning of 2021 for that. So stay tuned. Again, go get yourself signed up, and then you'll be the first to know when those events go live. Any other user group leaders, or really honestly anybody? Like I'm always curious to know how far this thing is reaching. So any user group leaders or participants from other user groups outside of the normal KC group that we have? Well, if you are watching this.
I'm in Phoenix.
Hey, Jason. Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Oh man, I just came all the way to Phoenix, and boy, are my fingers tired.
Love it. Well, thanks. I really appreciate it. Tell your friends. Share the recording. We always are interested in adding more folks from outside of KC. Expanding the network. That's what the community is all about. So thanks for being here. And if you are watching this on a recording later and you are from somewhere outside of KC, do the same. Share with your friends, your family, your enemies, and we will look forward to having you on a future call. Any Salesforce employees on the call? Dale, once again, he sent out that email. I saw it. Goes to everybody. Never gets many replies, but he tries. Any Salesforce employees that we have?
Hey, Ryan Seavey here.
Hey, awesome.
Ryan Seavey.
Hey, I keep trying to join these, but I just, it's always tough to work it in with the schedule last minute meetings. So glad I could join today.
Yeah. Glad to have you. And what are you with a particular group in Salesforce or?
Yep, I'm with CSG, and I'm a director of technical consulting there.
Awesome.
I've been with Salesforce for about 4 years now, not quite.
Cool. Well, thanks for being
Ryan Seavey is probably by far one of the smartest people on all things Salesforce I have ever met. The way he can break down any problem, literally any problem, down to the most simplest terms that even a moron like me can understand is just phenomenal. So if you have the opportunity to do anything with Ryan, pick his brain, ask him any questions.
I should have turned my video camera on because I think I'm blushing. That's very generous of you, Dale. Thank you. But door's always open. Feel free to ping me with any questions or anything that's top of mind. I always, of course, love talking Salesforce. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Always a pleasure to have somebody from the mothership on the call.
Sure, no doubt.
All right, community resources. MVP office hours, first and third Friday of every month. Friday at 10:23. Hey, Dale, who's going to be on 10:23?
We're in a good groove with a healthy mix of like technical architects like Jake Bruce Schaefer. It's hosted by myself, Squire Kirshner, who's kind of an all-around, touch all the things kind of person, and Joy Shutters-Helbing, former fellow solo admin. Brian Kwong, the automation wizard, has been on a number of times.
Awesome.
We get a good crew, about 15 to 20 people. And I just want to brag right now that the last few meetings, when I look at the participant lists, Kansas City holds the market share in attendees. So we're kind of kicking the butts of every other metro around the country. So that's awesome.
Love to hear that. Keep it up. Definitely keep it up. Good job. Hey, speaking of, so I'm not going to read everything on this list. A couple of things I did want to mention though. You know, we're kind of running over one today actually, but Trailblazers Innovate is happening every Tuesday in October. If you haven't checked those out, you can learn more about that on Trailhead. They'll have a little banner at the top that kind of reminds you to join. But they're doing every Tuesday. They're doing an hour on some really interesting topics. So go check that out. That's in addition to all the other Trailhead Live content that's out there. And the Idea Exchange prioritization is done for the current round. But if you haven't gotten yourself set up to get the notifications for the prioritization, definitely do that, because those windows only stay open for a little bit of time. And we want to hear from you in the same way that we're dominating the MVP office hours. I want us to have a lot of control over the product. So be on there and vote. So you can check that out. Well, it'll be in the deck. But you can always just go to ideas.salesforce.com and click prioritization, and that'll get you in the right place. True to the Core, live October 27th. I think we teased this last time too, but they're trying to do more of these True to the Core, and actually they're including this. This is the final Trailblazers Innovate of October. So dovetails nicely. The True to the Core sessions are awesome. It really gives you an opportunity to speak directly to Salesforce and the product managers that make all of your favorite things. And if you have questions about, roadmap, or you have questions about, things that you think should have been fixed a long time ago, this is the time to ask those questions. And you'll be able to participate with folks around the world asking these kinds of questions. So it's also kind of cool just to see what other people care about, right? Who maybe don't use the same product mix that you do. I know that's one of the things that I enjoy about these True to the Core sessions. But check it out. If you haven't registered yet, it'll be in the deck. All right, favorite slide. I know we just did this, but I know there were a couple people on last time's call that was saying that they were planning to do a certification exam, maybe in between last time and this time. So any certification updates, any first-time attendees, new roles, new jobs, job openings you want to talk about? Sound off. Well, I think we got a chat. Let's see. Oh, it's just Dale doing work, getting that registration site out there. No first-time attendees? I mean, we know Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Jason.
We also have Greg Rupp just put in there, new attendee. Awesome. Welcome, Greg, from my former stomping ground.
Oh, awesome. That's
good morning. Yeah, no, I actually, I'm a new member as of 3 o'clock this morning, because I woke up
in a cold sweat.
Yeah, in a cold sweat. And I'm a little bit nervous about this because I don't know the etiquette, but I see two things that apply to me on this slide. One, I'm a first-time attendee, and two, we have some job openings and some roles at YRCW. So we actually have a director position and a manager position that are open right now. And we're always looking to build our team of developers and technical talent. I see David Tony's on here, so hi, David.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, David.
I'll be reporting to that new manager and director.
Oh, good God. Okay, I've known David for years. No, I'm kidding. I love David. He's good. YRC is an awesome company.
Yeah, you know what? We've got a great team, and I'm not just saying that because I'm looking to build it, but boy, I'm really impressed with our team and what they've done. We're pretty new to Salesforce. I think we went live in January with sales, and then we did some case management stuff, and we were able to get off our Microsoft platform and before we had to write them a big check. So good job, team, David and others. And so, yeah, we've got a pretty young team, but man, whenever I meet them and we do our demos, I'm always impressed at the work that they're doing.
Awesome. That's a great plug. I know there's folks out there who are looking. So hopefully if you're not on here live now, if you're watching this later, reach out to Greg.
And I will say, I know I've probably said this before, I spent 7 years at YRC. That was my first job as my career. Phenomenal company to work for, phenomenal people, just great organization. So Greg, if you have any links to JDs or anything that we can share out, please absolutely let us know and we'll distribute them out.
Well, yeah. Thanks for that, Dale.
Yeah, get them posted in the success community as well. And then if you have them now, and we can get them in the chat, even better. So,
I'll do it. Thanks.
All righty, a couple more little updates real quick because I want to get to Melanie and Spekit. So more certification days coming up. Don't miss these. These are really cool. We've had some folks take advantage of them. So if you don't know about certification days, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's about getting yourself prepared for certification and getting a little voucher to help you out with that, maybe first certification or second certification. It's not limited to that. It's I don't know why I said that, but for those folks maybe who haven't taken that step yet, haven't leapt over that hurdle, that's what certification days are all about. So check it out if you haven't already. Link will be in the deck. And then Trailhead Quests. I love Trailhead Quests because I love swag. So if I love swag, my Cody. It looked weird. So check it out. If you haven't already, just go to Trailhead and you complete any of the 7 super badges for an automatic entry win. You can do it anytime between October 1st and October 31st. So I'll tell you, for those admin type folks out there, if you haven't checked out the super badges yet, those first couple are really not that hard. The admin one is not that hard. The app builder one is not that hard. So check those out. The lightning reports and dashboards should be easy for you. So if you want, you can go get yourself an entry and win some cool stuff. And David, who was here in May, is offering a free reports and dashboards on demand class. So if you like David, if you like what he had to say, or you just want to learn more about reports and dashboards, check out the link in the deck and you can go take that class for free. And then you can go sign up, do the super badge on Trailhead and get your swag. So check that out. We love David and we really appreciate him extending that free class to our user group.
So the only caveat on that is he's had that up as a free offer for several weeks now. So if you're going to do it, jump on it as soon as possible, because I don't know when it's going to go back to being the opposite of free, which is not free. It's, I think, $70 at a normal price, but I didn't see anything on the site about when that offer expires. So take advantage of it as soon as you can.
Awesome. Great call. Thanks, Dale. Without further ado, this is today's agenda. We're going to have Melanie from Spekit, talking about driving adoption and documentation best practices in a remote environment, especially important and valuable right now with the tool that she has to share. I think you all are really going to like it. And then Lindsay Paulson from Digital Mac is here, and she's going to talk. Digital Mac is here. And she's going to deliver a Be a Multiplier session, which I'm really pumped for. I don't think we've had a Be a Multiplier session delivered through user groups. So thanks, Lindsay, for being here. And we will do that after Melanie is done. So Melanie, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you share yours. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for sponsoring, and looking forward to this presentation.
Awesome. Super excited. Thanks so much, everyone. Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
And Melanie, I have shared the link to the survey.
Awesome. So if you guys see the link to the survey, it's super short. It's like 5 questions, multiple choice. There's 2 or 3 Amazon $50 gift cards to win. So pretty good ratio on this call. And really the only goal is to, we're doing research on how admins currently communicate changes, how often they communicate changes, roll them out. Because turns out there's not a whole lot of research on it. So thank you so much for participating, and excited for today. So just a quick agenda here. And Jeff, just to confirm, I've got 40 minutes.
Yeah, 40 minutes would be great.
Awesome.
Thanks.
And so my presentation style is very much conversational style. So feel free to jump in with questions, talking points, any best practices you guys have seen at your organization as I go. But I'm just going to kick it off with a little bit of the background on Spekit and how it came to be, given my role as an admin. Then we'll talk a little bit about why adoption is a growing challenge for organizations. We'll talk about just best practices and steps you can take today within your org, with or without a tool. And then I'll give a little bit of an overview of Spekit and a demo. So feel free to jump in at any point in time and ask questions. But just a little bit of background on Spekit. So my background is as an XML admin. I was working at a fast-growing real estate company. We went from like 15 to 150 employees in just under 2 years. And we'd implemented Salesforce, but done just about everything wrong possible. We didn't have a business sponsor. We, hired a partner offshore, but didn't have good requirements. And it was a really complex data model. It was a real estate crowdfunding platform. So not your cookie cutter Salesforce contact book. And so a year in, we basically had like no adoption, no teams were using it. And the leadership team made the decision to get rid of it. And we were about like close to $1 million in from an investment standpoint. And that's when our CEO came up to me. He's like, hey, Mel, we decided to get rid of Salesforce. We're going to build our own in-house solution, which if any of you guys have ever experienced that, raise the alarm bells. And I never used Salesforce before, but I stared. We were on First and Market, so right in the heart of San Francisco, and I was staring out at the Salesforce tower, and I'm like, something's off here. Like, clearly they're doing something right. We're the ones that did it wrong. And so that's actually how I convinced him to give me 3 weeks to just like, let me get my hands dirty. Let me try and figure things out. And I spent more time on Trailhead and YouTube than you can ever imagine. And basically just made one small case for our business development team, like, hey, would this work? And from that point, the rest is history. For the next 2 years, I completely re-architected the solution. We hired an architect, developer, and an admin team to support me. And as we were making all these changes, one, we were still growing and hiring like crazy. And two, change was constant, right? And I was using PowerPoints and Google Docs and sending emails and Slacks, you name it, to try and get everyone using it and understand what we're doing. But we were still getting a bunch of, poor data because people have different understandings of our fields and our business processes. I was getting just pinged every 5 seconds. And it just felt like a lot of chaos. And so that's when I started looking for solutions to, help with Salesforce documentation, adoption, change management. And what I found is that either solutions were outside of Salesforce, right? So think your Confluence or Google Docs or PowerPoints, or they were super complex to implement. And I was like, well, if all of my fields and document and processes are in Salesforce, what if I could just import those to use as a baseline for our documentation, so that then if I changed our field labels, if I added new stages, I could pull those in. But then all the training and documentation I had would actually show up in Salesforce where users needed it. And that was really the whole idea behind Spekit. And so we started Spekit a little over 3 years ago with my co-founder. Since then, we are the top-rated solution on the App Exchange and on G2 for digital adoption and change management. We're really proud of our ease of use and ease of setup, because having been the person doing it, I ain't got no time for training documentation, so it's got to be super easy. Hopefully some of you guys can relate, and we're really just proud of the customer base that we've been able to grow over time. Now, how we got started, it wasn't just myself and Zari. We actually reached out to Shauna, and some of you guys might recognize Shauna because she used to lead True to the Core, which is the session that Jeff mentioned earlier, and she was also one of the key product managers behind Lightning. So she was one of the first advisors we brought on to help us solve this challenge, and she was excited about it because obviously she'd seen it across a bunch of customers. And then we started off as a bootstrap company, but then as we were growing and getting more traction, we just realized we needed to build the team faster. And so we brought on investments from 2 also former executives that have now gone on to build their own VCs. Layla Secca, if you guys know her, she led the path to equal pay at Salesforce. She actually just announced, it's her birthday today, and she just announced that she partnered with Salesforce Ventures to launch this incredible new fund, specifically targeted to provide more funding to Black entrepreneurs. So please check it out on Twitter and voice it. It's phenomenal. And the fund that she raised is actually all female LPs and investing in more women. So really, really proud to have Layla on board, as well as Brett Queener, who was one of the OG Salesforce executives. He led the acquisition of ExactTarget, Marketing Cloud, led product, et cetera. And so for us, we wanted to be the best-in-class product for Salesforce, and so we tried to bring on the best-in-class minds to guide us. But with that, before I go into the product, I want to talk a little bit about why this is such a problem, right? And many of you guys here can probably relate, especially as admins, which is that, your team probably use Salesforce as well as a lot of other apps. The average is 14, lots of interruptions, lots of emails. And a lot of studies show that on average, employees spend up to 2 hours just context switching and trying to get back into a task. If you're working in the middle of a workflow and you get an email and ping, we know how hard it is to get back into that workflow rule you're writing and that 10-line formula. And so it's causing a lot of tension. And worse is in this work from home environment. Now, in the Salesforce world, most of us might have been used to working from home, but our team members weren't necessarily. And so a lot of companies are struggling to make sure that all their employees are aligned and self-sufficient in their own homes. And so if you look at the day of your average salesperson or end user, right, they're typically flowing between different flows. They might start in a tool like Outreach or Zendesk, and then they might go into LinkedIn, and they might go into Salesforce. And so their day-to-day workflow is already switching between applications. But then all the knowledge, right, in terms of your policies and procedures, in terms of your training, et cetera, are typically scattered across a ton of different systems. And, you know, one of the pivotal moments that Zara and I had when we were building Spekit was that, like, wait a minute, as consumers, right, in our personal lives, we've got iPhones at our fingertips, Androids, you name it, but we can do a quick Google search. It can be at dinner. It's like, when's that concert? When was that historical event? Within a second, you can find information. And not only that, when it comes to learning, most of us are using things like YouTube or, you know, Trailhead is a fun example, TikTok, you name it. We have no problem spending time scrolling through videos and all these engagement. But then you look at the workplace, and again, like, information scattered, you don't know where to go and find information, it's usually outdated, et cetera. And then when we learn, most of us are having to sit through like webinars that are training us on the latest and greatest thing in Salesforce. We're having to sit through a course and then take a quiz at the end, and we only are going to remember about 26% of it. And that was really the impetus for wanting to do something that would more so mimic our behavior in our day-to-day lives. And the reality is, and most of these will probably sound familiar to you, or at least I hope so, but whether or not you have the luxury of having a dedicated Salesforce trainer, that person that is helping all your employees, the reality is that not having the right support and not having the right adoption is challenging, and it's costly, right? It leads to constant support and productivity loss, which means that most of us as admins, at least in my former life, I was then actually getting my admin work done after hours, right? With late releases, et cetera. I saw, did someone want to jump in here? No. I constantly had like a longer backlog than I could deal with. I was constantly doing data quality, and there was just a lot of frustration because leadership was like, why can't I get the right forecast? And users were like, well, we don't know how to fill this out. And it was just a lot of stress. Now, in terms of solving for this, there's a couple things to keep in mind, and this is where I'm going to share some best practices before we go into the product. One, there's not a whole lot of information out there on adoption and change management best practices, but there is a study that was done by an Australian technology institute that really broke down like what are the core factors that influence adoption when it comes to individuals. And the first thing is perceived usefulness, right? And that's the whole idea of starting with the why, right? Unless I actually think that this is going to make me make more money if I'm a salesperson, answer faster in my support job, work more efficiently in my operations role, that perceived usefulness, that why, if I'm not bought in, I'm not even going to log into the system, right? And so that's why when it comes to getting adoption, your communication and making sure that you really understand, you know, what your user base's prior experiences. Is this new to them? Have they used Salesforce perhaps at a former job and it was a complete disaster? Right? Really getting to know your users is important so that you can get a pulse on things in terms of their openness. And then the second piece is once they're actually logged in, right, it's ease of use, right? And so if David presented not long ago, I would imagine he presented on his whole simplify the user experience around having consistent page layouts, right? So that you're not having details on the left on one record, details on the right on another, related list at top, related list at the bottom, right? The more UX, UI consistency you can do, the better people will be able to recognize those patterns, right? And so ease of use also comes down to managerial support and training. And so these are the two things that this study found are the two highest influencers on actually driving adoption. One, I need to be bought into the why. How is it going to benefit me as an individual? And two, once I actually do it, is this going to be easy for me to actually get my job done? But the third piece, which I find the most interesting, but I've also seen firsthand now on numerous occasions, and this is one of the first questions I ask any of our customers is, do you have a champions board? Do you have subject matter experts? Because they found that after those first two, the third highest influence on adoption is peer influence. And if you think about it in your personal lives, right? If your entire family has an iPhone and you're the only one with an Android, that green to blue ratio is going to drive you crazy, right? And so over time, you will likely cave, right? And so it's really important to realize that what happens in our consumer lives really isn't that different than in the workplace, right? It's really important to keep in mind that peer influence is important. You don't want to be that one Salesforce admin or the one IT team constantly pushing things on your users. Instead, you want to have champions throughout the organization that are, evangelizing it for you. So just something to keep in mind as we proceed. Now, when it comes to building a change management and effective adoption strategy, I really break it down into 5 things. 1 is timing of changes. 2 is how you communicate them. 3 is the documentation that you provide. 4 is the training. And lastly, reinforcement. So when it comes to timing, right? Now, this is something that I made many mistakes around when I was an admin. For example, rolling out a change on the Friday evening right before quarter end on the Monday. Turns out sales teams don't love logging in and trying to close their deals and not being able to save the opportunity because I added new validation rules that I didn't have time to properly train them on. That's holding them back, right? Same goes with just Monday mornings in general. We've all got Sunday scaries, or many of us do, right? There's nothing like logging into your system for the first second of the week and seeing something that's changed. Now, if you work at a large enterprise, sometimes that's inevitable, and that's where the communication up front comes. But when you can, really think about, with your team, how much change have we rolled out recently, right? Have we grouped it together, or have we been just sending out new fields, new objects, new processes every other day, not really being mindful of just how much other change is happening in that user's role? And really, can we wait, right? Can we wait until after quarter end? Can we wait until after this big new sales kickoff before introducing more change? And so just something to keep in mind here, as you think about planning for your changes, make sure that you're really speaking with your frontline managers and your end users to understand, like, hey, what's coming up for you in the next 3 weeks that might, be something that you want to schedule around. Next, when it comes to communication, I spoke to it earlier, but really, really important is to make sure that you're communicating the why, right? You're starting with the why. I'm rolling out this change so that you can get, automate your email so that you can send more emails per day, which will get you more leads, which will make you more money, right? If it's salespeople, tie it to money as much as you can. If it's support, talk to them about how it's going to help increase their NPS. Like, it's really important to understand that as a Salesforce admin, you're that internal salesperson, right? You have to convince the rest of your team to use what you're building, or rely on the rest of your team to help you with that. And so one recommendation I have is just spend some time actually sitting with your users and watching how they work, right? There's countless examples of times that I was rolling out something that I thought would be really beneficial based on the requirements I'd heard from the manager, and then the end users would complain because that wasn't actually how they worked, because turns out managers don't necessarily know the nitty-gritty workflows that employees go through. And so spending some time picking a few different team members from different teams and just dedicating 30 minutes a week. 30 minutes a week, I'm going to spend time actually connecting with one of our team members over coffee and just asking them to walk me through what their day looks like, so that you can get, one, more literate on your different users and their roles, but also on how you can identify those low-hanging fruit and opportunities that might help. If it's a big change, right, like migrating to Lightning or rolling out CPQ, this should never come to a surprise to your users. Make sure that you're talking about it frequently. Make sure that your leadership and managers are talking about it frequently, and focusing again on the benefits so that it's never a surprise. And make sure that you're sending reminders as well, both upfront as well as after the change is rolled out, to make sure that your team is always up to speed. When it comes to documentation, so I will be the first to admit, documentation is something that I strongly, strongly believe is necessary, but I myself do not love documenting. It is hard to find time, and especially when you think of kind of what I call the old way of documenting, which is like writing out process manuals start to end. Like, none of us will ever find 3 hours in our day to just sit down and document Salesforce. If you've been telling yourself for the last 2 years and haven't found time, that's probably why. And so I recommend really learning from our approach in the development world, right, with agility, and taking more of an agile roadmap to building your documentation. Meaning, don't feel like you have to set 3 hours aside and do it all at once. That's the old waterfall way. Instead, how can you break it up into small bite-sized pieces? What are 3 questions that came up in the last week that you can start documenting today? Or can you dedicate 10 minutes per day in documenting something? And you'll see that over time, your documentation starts coming to life, and it doesn't feel like it was as much of an effort to do as well. And then lastly, reinforcement, right? A lot of times we For us, so much of the change is the scoping, the requirements gathering, the building out, the testing, you name it, that we forget that when it comes to adoption, that like your release is just the start, right? That Salesforce rollout that you spent 2 years building out is just the start when it comes to the end user, right? And so reinforcement is the #1 area where things go wrong. And we did a survey of John Barrows of 1,000 sales users, and 67% blamed them for getting training, for getting processes on lack of reinforcement. So for reinforcement, a couple recommendations. One, find champions, right? Find that user that just loves Salesforce, or that one user on the sales team that's been there for a while that has high influence. 2, host lunch and learn or office hours. Whenever I do a big release, I'd always have a few hours dedicated at different times. Like for example, 9 to 11 on one day, 1 to 3, and then 3 to 5 to accommodate different schedules where people could just jump in and ask questions. And then once I get those questions, I document them and send them out. And then really encourage your managers to create that culture, right? Because adoption is more of a culture problem than it is a technology problem, right? You can build the best solution possible, but if people aren't bought into using it, if it doesn't seem like it's important or that there's gonna be repercussions from them not using it, you're just not gonna see the results. And then there's ways to make it fun as well. Nana Gregg, one of our first customers at JLL, even when she was rolling out Spekit to drive adoption, she put like Amazon gift card links in the different specs so that the first person to read through the spec would get the Amazon gift card, right? So talk to your leadership, see if you've got a couple $100 here and there per month that you could dedicate to making it fun and really encouraging people to learn these latest trends. And then lastly, when you do see positive behavior, right? When you do see that salesperson that was resisting and then now they're filling out their opportunities correctly, when you do see a team now that's more bought in, remember to give kudos, right? That positive reinforcement, again, will encourage behavior as well. So hopefully those are some quick tactics that you can take away in terms of implementing with that, and I'll share the slide deck afterwards as well. And so just one quick takeaway, I really think it's important that this isn't just like, great, this was interesting, and I'll walk away. Write down like one commitment that you can make today based on all the different ideas that I just shared so that your next release or your next change goes smoother, right? Is there an end user that you could pick out to spend 30 minutes with? Could you spend 30 minutes this week documenting the last 10 questions that came up in Salesforce so your team can easily find it? Writing something down, committing to it will start helping you build the habits as the Salesforce owner, right? The steward of Salesforce in your company to help driving adoption as well. Now with that, here's Spekit. So our approach to solving for this was to build a solution that made it really easy to both centralize your knowledge and documentation, but make it really easy to deploy, easy to use, and make it contextual, not just in Salesforce, but in every application out there. And so we really break it down into 3 aspects, right? The first thing when it comes to adoption is like, one, how do I navigate the UI UX of Salesforce, right? So we've got different features that allow you to embed training within the UI to help guide the learner through Salesforce. But then 2, if I'm a salesperson, learning how to navigate the UI UX is step 1. Actually, step 1 is signing in, right? Communicating the why. 2 is knowing how to navigate the process so I can get to that outcome or goal that I'm looking to accomplish. And then 3, how do I stay in Salesforce? What keeps me in Salesforce? Well, putting the kinds of resources that I care about as a salesperson, as a support person in Salesforce. And that's what I refer to as enablement or knowledge. So I'll cover this a little bit more, but for example, if I'm a salesperson and it's my first time competing against this new competitor on my opportunity, what if I could find that competitor information right there in Salesforce? Or if I'm a support agent and there's an FAQ that applies to both Salesforce cases as well as general company cases, what if that information could be right in Salesforce as well for the user? And then lastly, from a communication standpoint, we actually just launched a feature, I think in the last 2 weeks, and that's all around facilitating change management, which is how can we make it easier to communicate a new field, a process change, et cetera, right in the workflow of your users, both inside and outside of Salesforce. And so I'm going to go over this to go over a couple more slides and then hop into the demo here shortly. But the idea is instead of having all that information scattered across SharePoint, PowerPoint, Google Docs, and Slack, and Outlook, you name it, with Spekit, all of that knowledge and training lives directly within your workflow. So you can have a sales playbook or process in a tool like Outreach that your sales team might use. You could have your messaging and key sales process in LinkedIn. You can have all of your sales methodology in Salesforce, and then you can even search any of this knowledge or training directly from Slack or Outlook as well. And really what makes us unique is that we integrate to Salesforce at a data model level so that you don't have to build all this training from scratch. You just connect in one click and import your fields and objects. You document them in Spekit, and then poof, the training just shows up in Salesforce where you would like it to, next to that field or object or training, without any technical manipulation on your end. And we are the only solution in our space with this kind of approach. So a couple things I'm going to cover. I'm not going to spend as much time today, but the foundation of Spekit is a data dictionary, because as I was re-architecting Salesforce, that was the first exercise I did. What fields do we have? What's being used? What's not being used? What are they integrated to? Who should I speak to about whether it makes sense to keep this? Does this field belong in this object? Does it not? That whole effort I did in a spreadsheet called The Beast. It was like more rows and columns long than you can possibly ever imagine. And I was like, well, the problem is, as soon as I make a change in Salesforce, that spreadsheet is out of date. And so what we did is the foundation of Spekit is a very simple UI meant to mimic the look and feel of a spreadsheet when it comes to adding columns to track custom information on your metadata. But we actually connect to Salesforce. So we pull in your fields, we sync at any point in time, so that field label updates, we'll pull that in, length updates, you name it. And you can assign experts. You can create your own columns just like you would in a spreadsheet to track custom information. And then you can export all of that to an Excel spreadsheet if you so wish, import it back into Spekit, and you can print a PDF and more. So this part I won't be spending as much time on today, but if you do have any questions on that, feel free to put them in the chat and I can answer them as well and give you a very quick power tour. But from an adoption standpoint, again, I won't cover everything. I'm going to focus on Salesforce, but everything I'm going to show you in Salesforce works in other applications. So if Salesforce is connected to an ERP or an HCM, like a Workday, you name it, you can have your process across all those applications. And there's really three main features around that. We have a lighting component that makes it searchable on mobile app or in the utility bar so that you can search any question on your sales process, or like, what does this field mean? Like, how do I contact legal? You name it, wherever you are. We have a sidebar, as well as you can embed icons where there's relevant help. And we work in Chrome or Edge today. We also allow you to search. So think of our mascot actually is an octopus, like this, if you guys have ever seen him. If anyone wants one, I'll drop my email afterwards. But the idea is that all of your knowledge and documentation is centralized, but then we have extensions into all your workflow that you can access the content. And so we have a Slack extension so that you can search Spekit from there, or if you're an admin that's constantly answering questions over Slack, you can in one click convert that answer into training so that in the future people can just search it. So I'll spend a little bit of time on that as well. And then lastly, I'll focus on our change management functionality, which includes our latest feature Spotlights, which within 30 seconds allows you to send a quick communication saying, hey, new field in Salesforce, or hey, your sales stages have changed. Send that notification, track who's viewed it, get feedback on it, and make sure that everyone is aware of that change and your updates are not getting lost in an email. And then one last big piece is that we've been partnering with a number of MVPs as well as just Salesforce experts to develop some phenomenal training. We actually just built a partnership with Encino as well. And the idea is that instead of having to start from scratch, we've created a whole baseline of training content that I'll show you today with over 70 specs on like the basics of Salesforce Lightning. We've got a CPQ, we've got NPSP, Salesforce Report, Salesforce Views, TaskRay, a number of apps. Feel free to ask me if we have it. But the idea is that we've got basically these packages you can download for free, and then you can just customize them to your need. Because maybe when it comes to accessing all tabs in Salesforce, pretty simple, straightforward. You don't need to edit that, but your process or create an opportunity might change slightly. So hopefully you only need to document the 20% or so. And then again, I won't have time to show all the functionality, but we've got different teams and roles. So you can create teams using Salesforce profiles, permission sets, roles, etc., so that you can mimic basically what teams have access to what training or content using your Salesforce hierarchy if you'd like, or you can create your own teams. You can assign what we call experts, and this is huge. I think for admins, because our whole goal is that this is not an admin only tool. This is a tool that you can introduce and invite your sales managers, your sales ops, sales enablement people to contribute to. It's meant to be really easy, no technical skills required. So you can actually say, hey, support manager, I'm going to assign you as an expert so that as questions come up from your team, you can answer them. And so this is a feature really designed around the whole principle of having champions and subject matter experts in your team. And then we track a bunch of content analytics. You can embed videos, quizzes, all sorts of great stuff. Now, in terms of just, a few reviews here, Wolters Kluwer has rolled this out on CPQ in the middle of COVID, had a lot of success. Northmark actually rolled this out in 4 business days because they had a huge sales process rolling out to 450 users in Minnesota. And so they were able to get it documented and rolled out and fully deployed in 4 business days. And then a few of our other testimonials here, Perigo used us for a lightning migration. And if you're wondering, like, is Spekit for me? The reality is we have customers across every vertical, and that's pretty common of Salesforce partners because most of us on the call probably all work in different industries, different company sizes. And so the idea, we've got a ton of nonprofits and small businesses that have, anywhere between 15 and 25 users. And then we obviously serve a bunch of larger organizations as well that have more. Generally speaking, you're a good fit if, one, your roadmap's pretty heavy in change management, meaning you have a lot of things planned that you're going to need to make sure that you have the right training and support around to make things go smoothly. If you have a big change coming up, like you're rolling out Salesforce for the first time, you are migrating to Lightning, everything that's going to have a lot of overload for your users. Or 3, if you're just, your information scattered, that there's a better way, Spekit can be a really good option as well. So with that, oops, oh well, that was meant for the end, but I will show it now, I guess. But we do love joining these community events. Spekit is the mascot here, so we'll give up to 3. So I'll share my information so that you guys can send it over to us. And so hopefully in the world post-COVID, when things open up again, we'll be showing up at some of these user groups in person, as well as at Midwest Dreaming and all these different community events. So definitely look out for the octopus that is Spekit. Awesome. Any questions before I jump into the demo itself? No? Awesome. So can everyone see my screen here that looks like Salesforce?
Yes.
Awesome. So what you're going to see here is our latest feature called Spotlights. Now, Spotlights is kind of similar to the in-app alerts in Salesforce. The only difference is that this can be sent not just in Salesforce, but in any web application in Chrome. And the idea is that you can set these up either to welcome employees to your different objects or processes, or because they take about 30 seconds to send, you can actually send one every time you're rolling out a change in Salesforce or your latest release notes. You can embed a video so that they can watch that, and we're going to track all the analytics and give you visibility into who's seen that change and who hasn't. Next, you can say, hey, let's go ahead and create an opportunity. And that is where you can actually launch them through a process that you can have right here in the sidebar right in Salesforce. This is an example of one of our templates for how to create an opportunity. And so you can see here that you can have a lot of different types of formats. So you can have something like a GIF, or you can have step-by-steps that walk them through that process. So the sidebar here is really meant to be the companion for the user. This is where if there's Spekit available here, they know that there is help available. So Spekit is context sensitive, where you can actually relate different processes to any given object. And a user's only going to see what content they have access to based on the team they're on. So if you have different processes for, an enterprise team versus a SDR team, for example, it's going to be specific there. And you'll see here that it can be a very simple 2-sentence liner. These are my favorite ones, just what are those questions you get all the time? Like, when do I create an opportunity? Is it when it's a lead, or a contact? Or it can definitely be something that's a little bit more detailed, like, hey, here are the meeting handoff notes, needs to be filled out by the SDR. Here's the link to research they need to do beforehand. So the sidebar here is, again, when they open it, they're going to see all the resources related to them. Think of this really as a kind of shortcut, but at any point in time, they can search for an answer. So for example, if I search, you know, how to create a quote, I can search Spekit here, and I'm going to see that process right here show up. So think of this search as basically like a Google into any training or resource you have available for your team. And you can also search by what we call a topic. So for example, for topics, you might want to search your sales stages. So if I can't remember my sales stages, I can open this topic, which is a folder of training, and go through all of our stages right here, qualifying an opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is that within seconds, your users can search and find information on their own within just a second here. Any questions so far on what I've shown?
Yeah, we do have Chris's hand raised in the chat. What do you got, Chris?
Hey, Melanie, this is Chris. I'm with Script Pro, and we've been with Spekit for, I actually was there before I came on, but I've been pretty heavily using it for about the last year or so. It's been a great experience. You didn't touch on this too much, but actually I was shocked because normally you'd like buy a software and it's like, okay, there it is. Now that you bought it, good luck. And we've been working with David on your team, and he's like, almost acts like, he works for us, just helping us pull across, get more out of Spekit, like get our users in more, and then kind of mature. Like when I came, no one was really that adept with it. And now, like, as we come in, David's really helped kind of like mentor me in getting effective with Spekit. And I've been able to sort of pass that on and have more people come in and sort of become those experts and really be the content generators. So it's been a fantastic experience.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear. Hi, Chris. Actually, that's really funny. Jeff, I don't know if you even know this. Jeff was the original champion for Spekit at Script Pro.
Yeah.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah, I tried. I was trying to make it happen, and I'm so glad to hear that it's actually going. You know, you leave a place, and I don't know. You hope that what you built keeps going. But I love to hear that, Chris. Thanks for sharing.
I really appreciate that, Chris. And yeah, that's definitely something that's that's really important to us, is making sure that we're not just a software that we, and hopefully we've helped you convert some of your content. That's one of the things we help with. Like if you guys do have documentation, we can convert it for you. But really glad to hear that. And I know David's really enjoyed working with you as well. So really appreciate you jumping in here. Yeah, curious to hear, like what's one of the main use cases that you've used Spekit for?
Well, you were talking about it a minute ago, where it's like if I sit down and try to document everything that I'm doing in like one big, 3-hour chunk of time, it's just, you never get around to it. So for me, it's been a lot of times like someone will ask a question, like by email, hey, how does this work? Or how do I do that? And instead of just writing the email, and it takes 10 minutes, you spend 13 minutes making a spec and then share it back out with the team, right? So it's just sort of like, okay, while I'm at it, let me take that extra 3 minutes. And I think that's one of the, again, the best things about the tool is that it's just right there. You don't have to go and where did I save that thing? It's just sort of like at your fingertips. So we use it for, adopting the leads process. Like, how does that work? What do I do when, this lead is no good and I need to indicate that back to marketing? Like, we just build a topic of each of those items and then tie it in to the lead object so you see it right on that screen.
Awesome, love that. Well, actually, love that use case. Let me show the team how they would do that. So here, for example, let's say, Spekit, let's just pretend that I was in my email right now and someone asked me a question. You can actually open Spekit right in your email and click create. So you don't even need to leave your email. If you want, you can click create here. I'm just going to show you guys how to do it from Salesforce. So if I click create here, I'm going to have the option to create a spec or a topic to organize the content or a spotlight. So if I create a spec here, so let's say a question just came in on what was the question? How do I send a lead back to marketing? For example. So the label is going to be the question. Then here you can actually document. So if you wanted to take a screenshot, for example, and do that, you could, there we go. You can add a screenshot if it's that kind of, oops, sorry, my two screens are on different ones here. There we go. Well, let's do that again, screenshot. Okay, sorry, I'm like, my screens are in different order there. There we go. So you can add a screenshot if you'd like. You can embed a video if you wanted to record something real quick. Or you can just go in and write, here is the process to follow. And then this is where you would organize it by leads. So for example, let's say that this was related to our sales process topic. As an expert, you can assign it to someone else or to yourself. I'm going to assign it to Peter here since I want him to answer things in the future. And then here you can really easily add it to an object. So I'm going to go ahead and assign it to the lead object so that it's easy to access. Now, to Chris's point, if you wanted to send a notification, you can decide to notify your team. It's completely optional. If it's just an edit, you don't need to. But if you wanted to notify your team, you can decide what team this is going to go to, all of your users versus one of the teams that you created. I'm going to say Shannon. If it's a big update, you can also send an email so that they get an email update. So this is great for communicating new fields, things of that sort, FAQ answered. And then if it was a really big change, you can go ahead and create and send a spotlight, which I'm going to show you here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create this. So you can do it right from Salesforce. Now, this spec saved here. So in the future, anyone can search for this set of keywords and they're going to be able to find that. You'll see here that I just got a little notification as a user up here that shows up both in this little sidebar letting me know of changes. And this is great too, because when it comes to all of your releases, they can see all of the different resources or changes that have recently happened in Salesforce as well. So that if they're like, wait, what was that thing last week that I can't remember? Now they have a log here of all of that information.
Melanie, I just have to jump in because I don't want you to undersell what you just did. The reality is, right, as Salesforce admins, we all know that we all have to do this sort of stuff all the time, right? You get a question or you have something in a release that you need to document, right? You're gonna end up writing that documentation anyway. You're gonna end up sending that document via an email anyway, right? Or putting it in a shared folder or linking it in SharePoint or something like that, right? You're gonna be sending some sort of communication and then you're going to be maintaining that document. And the fact that in the moment you answered the question, captured that the question was answered historically, made that question or that answer to that question available in real time with the communication without having to send a separate email, right? And even if I didn't ask the question or don't pay attention to the notification, the next time I go to do the thing, I still see the new documentation that you just created, right? So there's no chance that I, as the end user, can miss that update. I think that's so critical to the process, right? Because how many times have we sent out stuff, admins, right, where you say, okay, here's the new process, go do, right? And 2 weeks later, you're still getting people going, what's the new process? I didn't read the email. Oh, it was in my spam folder or whatever, right? Like, no more excuses. And you're actually going to get more value out of the work that you're doing in your process documentation, which we don't want to do anyway. So at least if we're going to do it, let's make sure that they see it. And I think what you just showed, even before we get to the spotlight, is so powerful, that real-time availability and that in-app availability. I didn't want to breeze past it so quickly.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it definitely was inspired by a lot of my former frustration, let's put it that way. And now it's honestly working with people like yourself or Chris that are giving us ideas all the time. I'm like, it'd be great if we could do this or this. Like the Slack integration honestly came because like a lot of our admin support there, and we have a Teams integration coming somewhat down the future. But a lot of it came from admins being like, well, it's not just my email that I answer questions. Like I'm spending all day in Slack answering questions. It'd be great if I could just create a spec from Slack, right? And so it's all about like, as admins, how easy is it for us to just capture that information and create it really easily. So appreciate it, Jeff. Really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, real quick question, since we're paused. The teams or the audiences?
Yes.
So I think I know the answer to this, but are those, is there any capability to auto create those teams based on existing Salesforce roles and or public groups or chatter groups?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So here, if I go, I'm just going to show you how to do it. So teams here, if you go to your teams, you can create the team, and then users, basically, you can go to your users and we pull in all of your Salesforce users.
Okay.
Say, hey, I want to take all of these users, and then you can filter down by Salesforce profile. You can filter down by a few Salesforce things, public groups, chatter groups, or Salesforce permission sets.
Sweet.
You can use that to filter down your users, and then you can add them all to whatever team you'd like.
But there's still a little bit of team management on, like, if I go add a new salesperson in the, the West Coast team, it's not going to like automatically add them to the West Coast team, but you make it really easy for me to find it and add it.
Yes, not yet. That is something that I personally would like.
Oh, I figured it was on your roadmap.
It's just in terms of right now, we've been focusing on more of like the actual like end user facing functionality, because especially now that everyone's remote, like this has become such a bigger challenge for teams.
Totally.
But that is definitely on the like admin roadmap, which is like I want an auto sync where if a user gets added to Salesforce, it automatically gets added to the right team, sends the invite, yada yada yada.
Yep, totally. You get it.
Question. Any other questions on that note?
As an aside, not the worst thing in the world that it's not directly connected either, because sometimes the role hierarchy that you have to use in Salesforce to do certain things doesn't necessarily align with how you might want to organize your teams for communication, right? So having the ability to have some level of manual control, not the worst thing in the world, because just because I add a salesperson doesn't necessarily mean that I want them to get all the communications that all the other salespeople.
Day one.
Yeah.
There's also, you might create the Salesforce user on day one when an employee joins, just like from your like HR process, but
Right.
then log into Salesforce until 3 weeks later. So
Exactly.
It's still something that I think we should give you the option, because small teams, it often happens. Day one, welcome to the team. Here's your Salesforce process. Good luck. Anyway, so just to show you guys here, this is the Spotlight feature. So as you saw, you can create a Spotlight on its own, or when you create a spec, if it's a big update, you can send a Spotlight with that. This is where you can say, heads up, new process here. You can go in and say, like, make sure to watch the video. I'll skip that just for time, but you can embed video or image here. This is where you can select what team it goes to, same teams that you have, let's say customer service. Then this is kind of cool. I think I showed the example earlier. You can link to a spec, but you can also link to a topic or an external URL, or just say acknowledge and close for compliance. So if you work in finance, you just want to make sure that people from a compliance standpoint have seen the change. You can just do that, like I acknowledge whatever you want in that button there. And then you can decide, like, well, where do I want it to send? So you can say, hey, I want it on any URL. Not really recommended unless it's like, hey, we're a software company and our system is down. Wherever you are as a user, let's make sure that you are aware of that before you jump into another demo. Or you can say, hey, I want it to go in, and you can make it, this is where you can make it super specific, right? So we'll parse it out, but you can say, if you wanted to, just say anywhere in Salesforce, you just put the start of the domain. Otherwise, you can say, hey, I just want it on the opportunity object, for example. We got a couple options like, hey, it does not contain the opportunity anywhere else. You name it. Once you do that, you simply publish. When it's there, you can clone or delete at any point in time. It's automatically going to trigger, but just to save some time here as an admin, you can search for your spotlights here and search that one. And then you can preview it as well. So if you wanted to just preview what it looks like, you can click preview and just see what the user is going to see as well. And at any point in time, let me see one here. If I click edit here, you're going to be able to actually go in and analyze. So you can see, okay, I sent the spotlight 3 days ago. Which ones of my users have actually looked at the information? Wow, terrible example. Let me find a better one here. But you can actually see like which ones of your users have actually looked at the informations that you sent, which ones haven't. So let's say opportunity. Hopefully this one's better. We still don't have a lot of analytics because this functionality just came out actually. So let's do here. Okay, so here you can see okay, you sent it to 30 people, 3 people have seen it, here's who engaged, time spent viewing. If you're adding a 30-second video and people are watching 9 seconds of it, not a good sign. And then you can drill down by individual users as well. So that user that asked you a question can say like, hey, I sent you that communication. You can drill down by team. So if you are a super big org, these kinds of like super granular analytics can be helpful, especially from a compliance standpoint. And as a small team, it can just help you say like, listen, go watch the video that I sent you. I can tell you didn't watch it. But then a couple more things here just in the web application. So you can add specs next to any given object, field, or picklist value. You know, we really recommend putting them next to the ones that really like, don't put it next to like date, don't have specs all over your Salesforce. It's really like, hey, when there's a process that a user needs to follow, give them that additional clarity. So for example, your stages is a good example where if you want consistency, actually put here like, hey, here's what we expect you to fill out in order to move to stage 2. And you can link between specs so that you can link to a process from right there. Or you can add like a resource that you might want them to send to your customer, for example, in that stage. So you can add like PDFs, you can make it very much so like a sales enablement tool in the process. And all of this is really easily edited here. If I search for, I'll just show you guys how to edit at any point in time. Again, you can just edit the spec right there. Any questions on that? Cool. And just so you guys know, the way it works is here, I can just right click and it's going to search for that field in Spekit if it's not documented. So let's say you just rolled out this field, you can then see it show up in Spekit here. And then as an admin, you can document it. And then next time you refresh the page, the spec will automatically appear next to the field that you needed it next to. So again, it's meant to be super agile. As you can see here, you do not need to be an admin. You can assign this to your support managers, you name it, to do as well. Now really quickly here, again, I showed this briefly, but just keep in mind for those of you that are not just Salesforce admins, but business technologists or sales operations, Spekit does work in any workflow. So for example, here, if I'm in Zendesk, you can see that you can relate topics to Zendesk, for example, that teams might need. For example, if I'm a service agent, I might need my FAQs of Spekit. And you can also embed Spekit next to any given field in other applications as well. And then in email, Jeff brought up, or actually Chris, you brought up that example here. If I'm in my email and someone asks me a question, I can actually pull up Spekit right here. And let's just say that this was one of the specs that people had a question on, our upcoming feature set flows. I can go in and just copy that answer into, oops, into an email with ease here. So you can copy content and use that to answer in any given email. Or you can take that information that you just responded in an email, copy this, and create a spec right there from your email as well. And then lastly, in terms of our extensions, no one needs to see my email here. Over here, I just want to show you guys a use case. If you guys have a Slack channel, one, if you don't have a Slack channel set up for your Salesforce questions, highly recommend that you guys do that. But then this is our actual internal one. This isn't our Salesforce one, but this is like any question that we get in from customers on Spekit. If someone had a question, I can just search for like, hey, Spekit, and let's say someone had a question on our teams and permissions. I can search Spekit there and see here it says understanding content hierarchy, teams and roles. I can see if this is the spec that I had. Great, it is. And then I can post it to the channel. And so that way, if your end users are asking you questions that you already have documented, you can answer that here. Otherwise, here's a question. Let's say that someone answered this question here. I can then say, hey, I want to create a spec from this answer. And you can add the label. Here's the question. You can then pick your topic that it's related to. And boom, now you've saved that answer into your knowledge base as well. So again, it's all about making it easy to answer questions, get things documented without having to think of creating a 12-page document. Now with that, real quick, just to give you guys a little bit more context, this is where all the content is stored. Don't get overwhelmed. Most teams have like 5 topics. This is our demo org, so we've got one for like every use case possible. But the idea is that when you sign up for Spekit, You can download from our library and get all the information, whatever topics or tools that you use that are relevant to you. And then you can go into the content here, and this is all the content that gets searched then in Spekit. But this is where you can take all of this content and print a quick PDF manual, which I'll load in a second here. Or you can say, hey, for onboarding, right, before just throwing our users in our tool, I actually want them to go through this training at their own pace. So they can go through all this content and read through it before actually going into kind of like an LMS. And so they can go through all this content at their own pace here. You can add an order to the specs and then view all the analytics as who's looked at the training as well. And so like I said, if you wanted to print a PDF, if you're a consultant and you want to be able to give off all this training to a client of yours, we're going to help you create a PDF of all this content with a beautiful little table of contents here so that it looks like you spent a lot of time on documentation. And of course, all these specs are editable. So like these are just templates. You can go in and edit them to your own need, just like you can with everything else as well. And then lastly, the setup is super easy. You simply connect to your org. It's a one-click connection, no customer data access. You then land on this page that allows you to pick and choose which objects you want to import. You can import standard, custom, install package objects. And then as an admin, if you want the data dictionary here, it's really like a spreadsheet-like view into all of your metadata that I was discussing, where you can see all of your objects or fields. Just like a spreadsheet, you can view any additional information like, hey, I want to pull in the API name here. So this is how you can hide and unhide columns. Or you can create your own ones like, hey, I want to create a column so that I can link my metadata to the relevant JIRA ticket that was the requirement was in. So with that was a lot of information. Any other questions or any area of the tool that you guys want me to dive into any further?
That was awesome, Melanie. I will let folks ask questions if they want to. One thing I just want to say, nobody's good at this, right? Nobody's good at process documentation. Nobody who owns any of the other tools that are in your org are any better at this than you are. And Salesforce historically gets a bad rap for like being confusing, right? And why is it confusing? Well, it's confusing because it's really customizable, and orgs have a tendency to over customize, right? When they're doing implementations or they're doing new releases. And so that really just compounds the problem, right? So one of the things I think is really powerful about Spekit is that it takes this thing that historically has been a Salesforce weakness and turns it into a potential Salesforce strength, and lets you, the Salesforce admin / Salesforce team, look like you have your stuff together more than any of the other teams that you're working with, right? And it becomes not just the Salesforce process database, but your organization's process database. And I think that's what's so critical or valuable about Spekit is when you / your team can start to have a really big impact on sales, for example, and actually embedding sales content in Outlook or in Slack or whatever beyond the reach of Salesforce, you get to start to set the tone for the rest of the applications that are in your team's app stack, right? For like what good documentation looks like, what good process documentation looks like. And you get to have more ownership in the data definitions and the data dictionary as a Salesforce admin, rather than maybe having to rely on data definitions that are coming from another team or another app, right? And that just overall makes your life easier the next time you have to go integrate with something, right? If the entire sales team that needs to use new product X, new solution X, right, is already used to everything being the way that you have it in Salesforce with your specs, then it's going to be way easier for you as the admin to kind of enforce your will on that new solution and make it in your own image the way that you want it to. So I know that's a little like high level and like a little esoteric maybe, but the long con or the long game of Spekit as Salesforce tool, like it's Salesforce is the foundation, but it actually can go a really long way within your IT organization as a whole. When historically, I know I've gotten a lot of like wagging of the finger because, you know, we roll stuff out and we can move so quickly compared to other applications within the IT organization, that we get a bad rap for change management, I think, in the IT space. And this just really goes a long way to help that.
Appreciate that context. Yeah, I mean, I think as a Salesforce admin, if you're just getting started, realizing that, like, one, you pick the right path because the possibilities are endless. But that B, like, I think really stepping into, you know, if you want to grow your career within your organization or beyond that, and really start taking a, you know, a more elevated role as you, you know, gain more and more, it's really about not just thinking about, hey, what are the features and functionality and processes we need in Salesforce? It's really, how do we make this platform a fully integrated, valuable business platform for our teams? And that's going to require really putting that, you know, headset on in terms of understanding, like, how does our business run sales? How do we help, you know, really accomplish that? And again, no matter how much you build out, if your teams aren't consuming all those changes and consuming those processes, you're going to hit roadblocks, right? And that's when that starts getting demotivating as an admin and frustrating. And so the more that you can start thinking a little bit more at scale around, like, yes, this tool is great for Salesforce, but, you know, our IT team that manages Tableau and SAP and Workday, right? We're challenged with volume of change. Like, think about one salesperson on your team. And I'm using sales because that's the one that leadership usually chomps down our throats on the most, right? But think about how many objects and fields and processes just in Salesforce they're expected to just know from day one. Now think about all the products that your organization sells. Now think about your competitors, right? This is my first time leading sales in my life. And I can tell you guys, it's not just that they're lazy, it's just that it's just a lot of information to memorize, right? We want them focused. We want our sales team focused on being able to present the company, present our product, answer hard objections, execute on a sale. We don't want to ever be seen as a roadblock, because that's when we start creating friction within the organization. And that's where that whole cultural issue happens, right? So it's all about, how can we make the life of our teams easier? And again, if you take that stewardship on yourself to really drive that change, be that influence in your organization, that's when I think you really are moving your career from just, hey, I'm the admin that's creating roles and profiles and stuff, to I'm really a change agent in the organization that's driving our team forward. And I think for every admin out there, there's a huge opportunity to really elevate that role in that organization.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks, Melanie, for that amazing presentation. You dropped your email in the chat, so everybody, if you haven't caught that yet, be sure to grab that email if you want to reach out to Melanie for an octopus, or, you know, just to get a deeper dive demo, have a conversation about Spekit at your company. Thanks for that, Melanie. Really appreciate it. Then we went a little long, but that's okay. We have time. I want to now invite Lindsay to present to the team. Lindsay is going to be presenting a Be a Multiplier, Make an Impact, Be a Multiplier. Be a Multiplier is a kind of an initiative that Salesforce and the Trailhead team in particular started a little while ago. And I really appreciate Lindsay bringing it to the fore here at the KC User Group. We have not done one of these yet here. Shame on me for that. So thank you for making that happen, Lindsay. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, let's see. I think I'm sharing.
It was
there.
Did
you see the PDF? Okay, great.
Yes.
There we go. Okay.
It's there.
All right. Hi, everyone. Wonderful. Okay, well, my presentation is fairly short today. I did see Dale's call to present a few months ago, and I was thinking about a way that I can be a little more involved and share something that I am passionate about within the Salesforce ecosystem. So I know most of you have probably joined month over month to these user group meetings, and I'm sure you've heard Dale and Jeff speak to the mentorship programs. Also, you know, just opportunities to be involved and be a multiplier. So every time I heard that, you know, it was really exciting, because that is something that I've been doing this year, a little bit more than usual. So I thought I would just take a moment to expand on it and share some of the tools and Salesforce resources that I have used in order to implement some learnings and trainings with Salesforce. So let's see. I wanted to avoid any hiccups with the animation. So I went with a PDF. So one moment here. Get my controls back. Okay. So today, like I said, it's really a bit of a short discussion. Some of these tools you may be familiar with already. You know, Trailhead being the primary platform where a lot of these training resources reside. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with Trailhead. So I just wanted to touch on the specifics of the Be a Multiplier initiative, as well as mentorship opportunities through Trailblazer Connect, and then taking a look at some of the tools that Salesforce provides in order to get started. Okay, just a quick background for myself. I have been in the Salesforce ecosystem since about 2012, in pretty much every role from end user to accidental admin to intentional admin, business analyst, trainer. So I've had the opportunity to grow within this ecosystem over the last several years. And currently I am the operations and business analyst for a startup on the West Coast called Digital Knack. And I'm also a trainer for a local company, Snap IT Solutions. They have just started providing Salesforce tech training in partnership with the Workforce Center, among other nonprofits in the area to help people who are looking to pivot in their careers, learn new skills. So with that opportunity, it's really been very fulfilling and obviously in alignment with my mission to be a multiplier.
Lindsay, I just want to jump in. Snap IT is so cool. My former boss, Alan Krause, is there, and I know has worked with you on the Salesforce stuff. So big shout out to Snap IT. If you're local, you don't know much about Snap IT. I know, you know, not just Salesforce, but other content. They're always looking for trainers and teachers. Really great programs over there. You can probably ask Lindsay more about it offline, and she can connect you with the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we even have a few of my former students on today's session that came through Snap IT. So yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so first I'll just start with the Be a Multiplier initiative. So we call it BAM. So the Be a Multiplier initiative tagline really sums it up really well, I think. Inspire others, make an impact, give back, I think is really the essence of the initiative overall. When I first started looking into this, I saw a quote from a Salesforce MVP. Her name is Stephanie Herrera. I wrote it down so I don't misquote her, but she said, when you find something you love, your first instinct is to share it. And that just resonated with me so much because I do talk about Salesforce a lot within my friend group. It's not something that they are close to, but when they hear Salesforce, I know they think of me because I am very passionate about it, and I love to kind of share my journey with them. So why was the BAM initiative created? Initially, you know, obviously to address the talent gap. Most everyone here is likely very familiar with the demand of Salesforce roles that are out there. Obviously, that demand outweighs the current number of Salesforce professionals. Latest statistics show about 3.3 million new Salesforce jobs are to be created by 2022. So, you know, trying to close that talent gap with the available resources, Salesforce, I mean, I've been with other CRMs, I've explored other technologies. I've never seen such an amazing platform that offers their resources for free. I'm sure you all have experience with Trailhead. Obviously, it's gamified. It's a super fun way to skill up and also, you know, kind of find your own path. Along with Trailhead is the Trailblazer community, which obviously this user group is a big part of that community. I have shared this user group with all of my students, all of my mentees. We are very lucky to have such an active community group locally. It's been really inspiring for me. I just started joining sessions in January. I actually live in Lawrence, so I feel a little bit alone in my Salesforce journey. So I was very grateful to find a really active community in Kansas City. And then obviously one of the things I like to highlight with students or mentees that are just starting their Salesforce journey is taking a look at all of the different opportunities within the ecosystem. Obviously, that first step is to explore the admin role. We know there are more than 5 roles, but officially Salesforce categorizes the roles within about 5 main categories, and we're up to 30 certifications within that ecosystem. So I think it's really exciting to share that up front with students. Like, you know, we're not all going to follow the same path. And the amazing thing is that you can really find something that resonates with you, that's fun, that's exciting to learn, and blaze your own trail. Okay, so I hear this phrase, BAM moment, a lot from speakers, you know, at Dreamforce and other regional events. I've seen a few BAM presentations, and everybody has their BAM moment, and I certainly did earlier this year. So I think that really started with just considering my personal journey and you know, being in a position where I kind of felt like I was hitting the ceiling. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for growth. And when I pivoted full time into the Salesforce ecosystem, it's almost overwhelming because there is so much opportunity. You know, it's almost hard to keep up with all the things that I want to tackle and all the things I want to learn. So it's exciting. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me engaged. And I wanted to share that. I loved having enthusiasm in my day-to-day rather than just kind of feeling stuck or like I was hitting a ceiling. I also recognized an interest in my immediate network. You know, back in 2012, Salesforce wasn't as widely used as it is today, particularly in Kansas City, such a hot spot for Salesforce. And, you know, when I say immediate network, it's primarily friends and family. Some had never heard of it and they were looking to pivot in their careers. And some were in a position where they're like, hey, I was told I'm going to be the admin in this thing called Salesforce, and I think you work with it. Any tips? And so I recognized a need for, you know, maybe I should introduce people to Trailhead. You know, how can I do that effectively? And then, of course, in March, I recognized a need in my, not just an interest, but a need in my immediate network and beyond. When COVID hit, it was, you know, devastating for a lot of people. Being out of work and looking for that opportunity, that career to pivot into. So, you know, that kind of blends in with my last bullet point of that kind of wraps up my BAM moment. It's a little cheesy, but I have always subscribed to that thought of, you know, if you're feeling discouraged, encourage others. And, you know, just going through that, especially the early onset of COVID, was a little uncomfortable. And, you know, I did just put it out there to see who had an interest in at least exploring or chatting about it. And it felt so incredible to at least, you know, lend a little bit of hope or a little bit of inspiration to people who, you know, were searching for something and feeling a little bit down. So I am going to speak a little bit about mentorships and a little bit more long-term opportunities when it comes to being a multiplier. But the BAM initiative particularly is usually centered around more of just like a single event or a single series of events where you are introducing Trailhead. And so it's not so much of a long-term commitment, more of just an intention to share Trailhead, and then also, be that person to help target the user's path. A lot of people who I have worked with, yes, Trailhead is out there. It's 100% free, accessible. However, it can be overwhelming if you're just starting on your own without that person to help kind of guide you or get you started. And so being a multiplier, you can help provide that targeted path, create a trail mix, something to get them started, to get to know the system. Also, having that bit of accountability from, having the student be able to check in, or also having them feel like they have support. Maintaining enthusiasm. I definitely went cold on Trailhead for a while early on, but I was working through it. So being able to have that person who's checking in and, hey, how's it going? And sharing their role or their journey within Salesforce, trying to keep that enthusiasm up to get to not just a finish line, but, just really keep users going within their Trailhead environment, and then also to help build a network. Like I said, I've shared particularly this group, the Slack channel with all of my students, my mentees, because I think, we all do better when we are inspiring each other, encouraging each other, and building the network is an essential part of keeping that enthusiasm up. And then I just wanted to throw out a few ideas if you are thinking about being a multiplier. Again, even if it's just a short session, 30 minutes, an hour, we'll go over the toolkit in a moment, but, trying to just sharing Trailhead and sharing some resources. What are some areas or types of events that you can host? Get in touch with nonprofits or maybe workforce centers. Also students. There's actually some trails that are targeted for high school, college students as well. Your immediate network, I've already talked about that. I tapped into that first. And then a virtual event. Obviously, right now we're hosting a lot of virtual events, and I took advantage of that, not having to leave my home. I thought, well, I'll just maybe host like a quick 1-hour session on a Saturday morning and introduce Trailhead, introduce those resources. Okay, so talking a little bit about the toolkit. One thing that Salesforce does really well to help this initiative is provide you with a lot of materials that you can download, personalize, and share social media, via email. So if you go to Trailhead, there is a trail mix for Be a Multiplier, and it comes with a zip file with all of those templates, which is really, really awesome. It makes it easy. And this is a sample, just a Twitter photo. They have specialized photos for Instagram or Facebook. So obviously spread the word and then host an event. So to transition to Trailblazer Connect, I just wanted to kind of share, and it's not always the case, but in my mind, I see the Be a Multiplier events, again, as an introduction to make those connections, to help provide those resources. And if you were looking for a more long-term mentorship, whether as a mentor or a mentee or both, Trailhead also has a program called Trailblazer Connect. And within that, a core piece of it is the Trailblazer Mentorship Program. And you actually can fill out an application, and they will match you with either a mentor or a mentee, or you can be both. I have 2 mentors, and I have several mentees that I've helped throughout the year. But I think for me, being a student is helpful for me being a mentor as well. So I would encourage you, if you are interested in being a mentor, or if you are seeking out a mentor, to go ahead and visit the Trailblazer Connect site within Trailhead, and you can apply. There are some requirements, but primarily if you've been in the ecosystem for at least 1 year, you're comfortable with the mentoring teaching position, and then if you're looking for a mentor, obviously no experience is required.
Can I ask a question, Lindsay?
I just
before
wanted
you get to the next section?
Oh, sure.
Well, so
Yeah.
you mentioned that you've kind of been on both sides of the mentoring program. Can you talk a little bit about the time commitment involved? Because I'm sure for a lot of folks on the call, it's like, oh, that would be great, but I'm busy. What does it take to either be a mentor or to be a mentee?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that's a really great introduction into this next slide, talking about some of the lessons I've learned with the scheduling and the bandwidth. So when you do go through the Trailblazer Connect program, you do have a little bit more of a structure and goals to meet with your mentee. So there's a little bit more of a time commitment and deliverables to meet within that program. However, you can gauge and control, based on what your needs are with the mentee. I did not have that much time, I felt, to actually commit to a long-term mentorship. So I started with just my immediate network, doing Saturday mornings here and there. And then I also did an evening, in between teaching evening classes for Snap IT. I thought, well, I'm not good with free time. I have to always be busy. So I'm going to plug in with maybe 5 or 6 of my friends, and a few of them are on the call here today. They hung out with me for, I think we did 4 straight weeks of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And they stuck with me. And that was a pretty large
That's so much time. Good for you.
Yeah, that was a pretty large time commitment. But that's why that is under my lessons learned. It was a lot. I was burnt out. And there was a large group, and some of them were further ahead than others. Some were struggling. Being in a virtual environment, you really have to be mindful that some are better with the technology, or some catch on faster. Some need that hands-on teaching. So I've learned, with the larger group, I think I bit off more than I could chew. I think it still went very well, but you lose some engagement because the pacing becomes a little trickier with larger groups. And then it is really important to maintain consistency. I stuck it out. They stuck it out with me, but it really was a huge chunk to bite off at first. So I did want to continue, but I just tried Saturday mornings for a couple of weeks in a row, and that worked out well. Until, we all needed our Saturdays back. So I think it's just being mindful of your bandwidth. Start slow, ease into it, make sure that you can maintain whatever schedule that you do put out there. And then I wanted to, just also show the unintended benefits. There's so many more to list, but honestly, especially now, like I said, that feeling of giving back, it feels like I do have that power to make an impact. Just, again, seeing a lot of friends having to pivot in their careers, or maybe they already have Salesforce exposure and they're like, well, this is my window. This is my time. I have time at home to study. So it's just a really great feeling to help out when we're all, needing to lean on each other a little bit. Also, honing my own skills. Getting back to the very basics, I've really just focused on teaching admin and platform app builder. Getting back to those basics taught me so much. Being able to break it down and teach it, I can't tell you how many things I was writing down on the side, like, oh yeah, how did I, thinking about plugging in at work, I overlooked some of the basics. So being able to get back to those basics, and also the shared inspiration. I've never been one to really chase certifications. I was pretty comfortable, but then hearing myself speak to, people attending my classes and talking about how fun Trailhead is, and how thrilling it is to get that next certification. Since I started this, I've picked up 2 more certifications, and I'm working on a 3rd this weekend. So that shared inspiration just, it did so much for me. So this is my big silver lining of 2020. I don't think with me being forced to stay inside, not go to happy hour, not go to brunch, I use that time to study and share Trailhead. And it's actually just been a really great experience.
One of the things, Lindsay, that I really
just
loved—
a few more slides here, but I wanted—
Oh, I just was going to say, I love that something that I don't think about a lot is, and that you really highlighted, is doing this just with your own network. You know what I mean? You know, you see people doing presentations like this, or you see people, you know, being on these Salesforce events, and you think, oh gosh, you know, they've you know, built this up and they've got this big audience, and you know, that's what making an impact is. But I love that you were like, no, I'm going to pick, you know, 5 friends that are just in my network, and I'm going to focus on them. And it doesn't have to be this big thing, right? It can just be like friends hanging out, but like, instead of us hanging out and watching a movie together, we're going to hang out and do Trailhead together. And I think that's really powerful. You know, everybody on this call has people, you know, maybe not everybody on this call can do a mentorship program, or not everybody on this call can, you know, do a big presentation or something like that. But everybody on this call has 2 or 3 friends that, especially now, to your point, could probably use some guidance or some help, or, you know, even just showing it to them as an opportunity or an option of what's out there. So kudos for that, I think. And just really keeping it close to home, and not trying to, you know, you don't have to like swing for the fences and try to get 30 people in a room, you know, and they can just be people, you know. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm on a mission to build my Salesforce army in Lawrence also. So, all right. So just a couple of ideas I thought I would throw in here. Obviously, there are a lot of ways that you can choose to. You don't have to do any of this, but I wanted to share a few things that I've wanted to implement or plan to implement. One is Trail Tracker. This is an app in the App Exchange, and it's really cool. You can plug in with, I believe it's just the chatter-free licenses to your, like, a free dev org. And so all of your students, you can actually track how many trails they're completing, or you know, how many badges they obtained, and you can create a dashboard, to like a leaderboard, to show in your group, you know, who's completing the most trails. So Trail Tracker is really fun. It's a great way to gamify it. You know, another idea leading from that is hosting a badge-a-thon. You know, maybe you just have like a weekend badge-a-thon, or something that you can host, and again, using Trail Tracker to show that leaderboard, who can get the most badges in 48 hours, or, you know, maybe run it for a month long, or something of that nature. And then, you know, Salesforce does have some swag available. They have the Salesforce store, and there is a Trailhead store as well. Just an idea. I just found out about these, so looking at some swag, I think it's a great way to engage. But obviously, you don't have to go overboard and do any of this, but it is a really fun way to keep people engaged.
Hey, 2 comments, Lindsay, on that. One, you know, I do also want to say that Dale and I, as user group leaders, like, we have access to an additional swag store as well. So if you're the type of person who wants access to stuff and, you know, wants to invest in some swag for your group, hit us up, because we might be able to hook you up with some stuff, depending on, you know, if we have any credits or anything like that, we might be able to help out. So please do that. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was, in addition to the Trailhead Tracker, and Lindsay, you talked about wanting to kind of build your Lawrence army. So there's a website out there that I used to talk about a lot, and like you, I kind of fell off Trailhead for a little bit and haven't been doing it as much. But it's called toptrailblazers.com, and it's a global sort of trailhead tracker, if you will, that's publicly available. I'm going to put the link in the chat.
Oh, cool.
And a while ago, I started one specifically for Kansas City, and folks anybody can go out and create a group, and you can have people join that group. You can like be the admin of that group basically within this little website. And then it keeps track of like as a group, the total number of badges, the total points, how many certifications you have, all that jazz. So it's a great way to kind of inspire, teams to work together. I know a lot of companies that, hopefully if you have a Salesforce, you're just using Trail Tracker, that's the way to go. But if you don't necessarily have a Salesforce org that you're all working out of together, and you don't want to own and maintain a dev org, something like Top Trailblazers is a great way to kind of bring all that together. So check that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great. Also encouragement for me to jump in the Kansas City group and work on that.
Definitely.
All right. And then I just added some links here as well. And taking away Jeff's link there, I think is also great. So I just kind of compiled throughout, but like I said, I'm sure most of you are aware of Trailhead and the resources that you can find there. It's not just a learning platform. It connects you to that Trailblazer community, which is just really inspiring and, gives you what you need to get started. All right, so I guess we'll open it up for some questions, but probably not a lot of new information, but hopefully a little bit of inspiration, to give back and multiply.
I think, first of all, Lindsay, thanks. That was awesome. And, maybe not a lot of new information in terms of like technical content, but, I don't know how many people know about, the BM Multiplier program. I'm sure most of the folks on this call did not know about the toolkit that was available. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the fore. And, for those folks who want to get involved, we'll make sure that this deck gets posted with all these awesome links. So you can follow up in the community and snag those links and start thinking about how you want to be a multiplier in your own community. So big thanks to you, Lindsay. Just want to wrap up a little bit here. Big thanks to Mel again from Spekit for presenting. And be sure to send her an email if you need an octopus. And take the survey if you haven't already. It's super helpful for them to understand adoption and just kind of how people do change management within Salesforce. So a big thanks to you all in advance for completing that survey. We, as Dale mentioned, just posted the November link earlier today. So if you haven't already, go sign up for the November session. And we'll have December up hopefully within the next month. Maybe we'll do the same thing. We'll post it the morning of the November session. We'll see how ahead we can get. But thanks for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it, especially everybody who was able to hang on the whole time. Thanks. And I certainly can open it up for a couple more minutes before we have to jump off at 1. But otherwise, thanks for spending your time and have a great day. Dale, I think you're back on the call. Do you want to say bye?
Hold on. Okay. I heard you through the muted part of my phone. What was that?
I just wanted to know if you wanted to say bye because I knew you were back on the call.
I do want to say bye. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We're going to have all the resources and everything shared out ASAP, as soon as possible, as the kids say today. And as always, here, I'm going to turn on my video too. Yeah, we're here because of Salesforce, but we're all here for each other. I continue to stress that we as humans need to continue to take care of each other. If you need an ear, if you need to just talk to somebody, if you need anything, because this world is so bleeping weird this year, I'm here. Jeff's here. Any of us are here. This is an incredibly safe place for all things. So feel free to reach out. None of us are doing any of this alone. So please do not forget that. And so with that, take care, everybody. Awesome job. Love getting to do this with y'all.
Here, actually, I'd like to just chime in some interesting information regarding BAMing and mentoring.
Please.
So recently, there was a great mentor who reached out to me because I joined another session in somewhere in the Midwest. He's in Michigan, And so the guy is Justin Ducks, and he does a podcast called Career Cloud Radio. So if anyone's interested in how to grow your career, because it's really cool, because it's a whole bunch of tips on interviewing, networking, resume, which you always build, even if you're not looking for another organization, just to advance in the organization, right? How to be able to brand yourself and position yourself. So really great podcast. I've been binge listening to it. And there's 3 interesting notes that I've made on my paper for networking that has to do with mentoring. So first one is for finding a mentor. An easy way to do that when finding a connection is to make a simple ask of, you've had a really successful career and I would love to hear your advice on what I should do next. So a phrase like that takes a lot of pressure off and makes the person feel really great. Like, oh wow, you think I've had a successful career and you want to know what I've done. So it's really just more casual. And from that, you want to have a mindset of thinking, how can I contribute? You're not there just to get, you want to think how I can give. And you want to be learning 3 things that'll help retain the connection. So you want to find 3 I's: interest, introduction, and insight. So you want to find what their interest is. This way, if they're interested in octopi, or if they're interested in emojis, something that interests them, so you can be able to follow up with them. You can have something to remember them about. An introduction, so who else they could refer you to, or perhaps even like at their company. The trick about networking is that it's better to network before a position's posted than after, because after they're like a bit like cautious. They don't want to give away too much information, play favorites, and the job might already be filled. So network before, see if they can introduce you. And industry insights, specifically, and see what insight you can give. And then another actually note of 3 takeaways: what action, what attitudes do you want them to believe about you, so your brand, and what answers do you need? I feel that was actually kind of answering those 3 I's. Do you have anyone have any questions about that? Any thoughts?
I think a lot of people are taking a step back and kind of going mind blown. That's a lot of that's the rich frosting on top of the incredibly spongy, delicious cake. Might need a big glass of milk to really wash down and appreciate all of that. That's huge. Thank you.
Can you do us a favor, Jason? Can you share that in the success community?
Yeah. I am.
You are awesome.
Well, I'm in, so just in the general Salesforce success group, or this one for Kansas City?
Yeah, if you could share it in the Kansas City one specifically, that'd be awesome.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, and also in the success one, that's a good idea, because I'm in a whole bunch of different groups. And so what I do is I get daily digests. So this way I'm not notified for every post, and I don't like lose track at the end of the week with like a huge book. But I have
that's why the weekly digest as a default is a terrible idea. Daily, good man. Yeah. You've never been here before, but I rant on that on every single meeting. Weekly is the dumbest default in the history of ever.
Sorry. Well, it comes from experience, because originally I tried weekly. And it was just like too much and too late. And so, just knowing the pace. And then also, so how I found events about this, there's a link for the community calendar. So calendar events. And originally I was doing monthly, like where I would just like put on some music and I just go through the entire month, like every day finding events across the world. But the problem is, some events pop up during the month. So now I do it weekly, where, I still play some tunes, and just get into the groove what I can.
Good. Yeah, if you can send that's an awesome way to attack it. But yeah, if you can send us those bullet points, those thoughts, we can, if you want to post them, we can also help distribute them more broadly. That's fantastic.
My pleasure. Thank you. This has been great. Everyone, great job. Lindsay, thank you.
Thank you from Phoenix. All right. And with that, take care, everybody. We'll get the stuff posted as soon as possible, and go ahead and register for the November 19th meeting. Thank you again to Melanie from Spekit. Thank you again to Lindsay. We appreciate each and every single one of you, and be well. Take care.
Bye, everyone.